afternoon, folks. It's another episode of the Gary and Mark Show, and I'm Gary.
And I am Mark.
And we're coming to you not live.
But we are live.
Yes, we are.
And we are once again, if people can see us on YouTube, and some can, Zooming. It's been like since end of March or so. Because yeah. In fact, I think it was about the middle March episode when we recorded at your house, and at that time social distancing was just underway, and we were sitting across at a table. And if you would have told me March 15th or so that we would still be doing this now, July 15th, I don't think I would have believed you.
Let's see, March, April, May. That's 4 months.
4 months.
Part of a year. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's been through something like this, maybe in some other countries or back in 100 years ago, but that flu, but never. Used to see those pictures on TV, 4 years ago, of people in Japan and China all wearing their face masks, saying, how silly is that? Out on the street, people wearing their mask. And now it's like, man, I've got a whole bunch of them, just ordered a couple of reusable ones.
Yeah.
It's, anyhow. So hopefully one day. Now, we talked about getting together, and we can do that. We just have to be safe. But
yeah,
since people don't know, Gary and I live about 23 miles apart, so this works out really well.
Yeah.
Can't get
saves on gas.
Saves on gas, and no germs go through the microphone, so that's always good.
Although when I do drive down to your place, you guys down there in Landrum, they don't think as much of their gas as they do up here.
Why is that?
So I try and time it so I'm just about empty, and I load up down there, and this is nuts. I feel like I've saved money.
Well, you do if you didn't drive down just to buy that gas. Exactly.
And then as long as you're there, you go across the road, and there's I don't know how much of a discount, the liquor store. So
you know what? And I have been in there because they sell beer.
Yeah.
And I have a good supply, but not as good as you might think. But the price, I don't want to bum them out or anything, but it's just the same over at Ingalls.
Yeah.
And Ingalls is cold, and it's not cold over at the other place for some state law, I guess. But it's there, and they seem to do a good business, I suppose.
Oh, gosh. Whole rafts of different kinds of.
Have you been in there?
I have.
Oh, okay. So you know more. I've been in there. Yeah.
I've been there one time, and it was like, there's more selection of different. I'm not that well versed on distilled spirits, even though I am from Kentucky and I'm supposed to know about bourbon. But
yeah, when I was in New Orleans as a young teacher, gin and tonic and whiskey sour are my only mixed drinks, I think, or Bloody Mary. Remember that? Yeah. That was about it. And I haven't had those in probably decades. Beer's good enough for me. Wine every so often, but yeah, my wife drinks Angry Orchard green apple. She likes that.
Yeah,
4% something or another in the evening before she heads to bed. Well, last episode, Gary, you introduced the Little Buddy device.
The Little Buddy.
And I just want you to know, reader, we've had a couple of listeners email, want to know, is there something like that for women? So I said, I'd let you know that you and the laboratory can go back.
Okay.
Maybe you have something in development that, maybe Barbara can help get it fitted or whatever. People want to know about it. They can go back and listen to episode 34.
Well, yeah, maybe it would be instead of the little buddy, the little sister, and then with the little sister, you'd have to get like do you remember the thing they call the Sanny film? It looks sort of like a funnel.
Yes, I don't know. I remember the name of it. Yeah.
We used to sell them at the store. I was at Sanny Films. Yeah.
So you did sell them? You used to carry them, or you used to sell them?
Yeah, we used to carry them. Yeah, and they so that I guess women also can write their name in the snow. If and actually, I think I purchased one for my mother-in-law on her horseback riding trip to Portugal. So
they made good sense because
Yeah, and
women,
see, you would need kind of one of those, I think, along with Lil Sis. If you don't want them to, yeah, we can. Okay, well, we'll get our crack team research team working on that.
That's a good idea.
Because we believe in equal rights, especially when it comes to having to do 1 and 2. We want to help you out.
That's right. Of course, the original little buddy, the Big Whiz Pocket Buddy app was a whole different concept.
Yes.
So, and women don't have that issue, I don't think.
No.
Yes. We won't get into that.
People they always had. They never had enough bathrooms in the restaurant compared to the men, because or they didn't. Yeah, so they'd be a long line.
And they still have that. I have been to the, Peace Center, someplace like that, and it's been intermission, and I mean the women's line is coming out the door. Men's might be too, but they move men so much faster. And I keep saying, oh my gosh, if I had to go, I would not be able to wait as long as that line looks. So I think maybe new places have to change that percentage, I guess, of
maybe if there are more women architects.
There you go. I was at the
maybe,
yeah, there you go. Both of those things would probably work right. Well, it's July 15th, we think, when most people will hear this. Anything in history on the 15th of July that comes to mind?
Well, the day after Bastille Day, when that.
And Bastille Day celebrated something in France. What was that?
It's like the folks stormed the Bastille to let out the political prisoners.
Okay.
And is that looked on as one of the beginnings of the French Revolution, which lasted for, several years and lots of beheadings.
Yeah.
But I remember, being told, well, the guillotine was a humane way to behead someone because it didn't miss. A lot better than a guy with a big axe.
Woo.
Having an off day. Yeah.
Exactly. Or hitting the person, but only getting 1/3 the way through or something.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. I guess that was a more humane way.
Well, let's go from that to here in North America. I did look up, in July 15 is Linda Ronstadt's birthday. And
all right.
Boy, a bunch of men my age, your age, we all 40, 45 years ago we had crushes on her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, what a voice.
Yeah.
What a voice.
Yeah.
And versatile. Gosh, she could sing. I mean, she could sing rock and roll, and she could do Hispanic tunes, and she could sing with Nelson Riddle in the orchestra. That's and gosh, just so versatile. Yeah.
So, yep, Linda Ronstadt. So, how old would she be? Is she?
Well, I think, let's see, if I'm 70, she's probably 73, something like that.
My wife likes Joan Baez, and she just recently had a 75th birthday show, so she must be 77 or 78 or so.
I mean, there's another voice for you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't see her, but I saw Judy Collins once.
Ooh.
She was also good. All the same era.
Yeah.
I think. Yep. So, Gary, it's July, and we live, both of us, you especially, in the land of summer camps.
Yeah.
And now COVID-19, almost all of them are closed.
Yeah.
And there are a few that are opening with all kinds of rules in place, safety things. We wish them luck and all that, and good health. But of course, it's, it was this time 49 or 50 years ago, in 1971, when you and I met at summer camp. And that camp is closed.
Yep.
And for this year. But this is their first time in how many years?
Well, let's see. They opened
22. So
22. Okay.
So it would be, that's right, because they're talking about.
This would be their 99th year.
That's right. 99 years, same family.
Yeah.
there are camps that are 100 years old or 99, but most of them have had several different owners.
Yep.
And not the same family. So this camp is in
Right.
the same family all that time. And a lot of people are missing it. And we've done a session up there. You and I went on the tower and did a recording back in January. Happened to have a pretty mild day, I guess, because it's at 20-some hundred feet. So it can be pretty cool out on that lake. But at this camp where you and I met, and I wanted you to talk about for a little bit this hike you took me on, because that introduced me to the fine art of backpacking.
The fine art of how do you stay alive when 12 angry campers want your head?
That's right.
Our own version of the French Revolution that took
That's
place.
good timing. That's right. We could have called maybe one. Actually, we may have had some New Orleans kids in that group. May have had some French names in that group. I can't remember. But and I'll just say that Gary was the experienced counselor. He had been there for a couple years at least. And he was my neighbor counselor. And we had a double cabin, Sleepy Hollow East. I was in, you were in Sleepy Hollow West. This is Camp Mondamin on Lake Summit, Tuxedo, North Carolina. Just in case you want to look it up, mondamin.com, mondamin.com. They are not a sponsor. They're not giving us any money for that endorsement. But I knew nothing. All I knew was in the what to bring to camp list, it said bring a frame, backpack, and a sleeping bag. Well, I'd been camping with my dad. That was about it, like 2 nights. So I go to the store. It was equivalent back then of Walmart, some sort of discount store. And there was a $5, of course, it was 1971. That may be the equivalent of $20 today. I don't know. $5 frame, canvas backpack, no waist belt.
So is this Mount Gilead?
No, this must have been in Durham, because I was in school in Chapel Hill. And Mount Gilead would not have had a discount store. And there was hardly anything like mail orders we have today, or catalogs. I know you had catalogs, but if you ordered it, I never would have gotten in time. You would have waited 6 weeks for it to show up. And so that was my backpack. I didn't know any better. It looked cool to me. And my sleeping bag, people can't see, but maybe on the YouTube they can. It must have rolled up to about 18 or 20 inches across.
Right.
Cotton, all cotton. Weight done, no stuff sack. If it had a stuff sack, you would have needed a 50-gallon burlap bag to stuff it into if you could have found one. So I don't even know how I got all that sleeping bag onto the pack, but you had to deal with me and those 12 angry kids, which weren't angry when we started. But tell us about that trip, Gary.
Spirits
relive those moments.
As I recall, spirits were high when we began.
As they always are.
Not
a cloud in the sky. Not
a cloud in the sky. And overnight cabin trips.
My first ever.
Very much promoted by the camp. Go out with your cabin. So an experienced counselor in his cabin would take an inexperienced counselor. That would be you. In his cabin, and we would all go off together. So that was 14 people, 6 kids, 1 counselor. So, and we would walk from the boys' camp around a piece of the lake, Lake Summit. And you remember you had to cross the road. I remember we had to cross the highway, and actually you were walking right on the edge of Camp Greystone property. It seems like you'd go up this hill and then you'd come down, and you had a little kind of rock outcropping you had to negotiate, come down by that, and it would bring you to that old steel bridge.
Right. Which is still there, right?
Which is still there. I mean, that the bridge that carries cars now is a new bridge just beside it. But that old steel bridge that sat above where the old dam used to be. And then, but once you got across, I think from our cabin to cross that bridge, at that point, you've done about a half a mile, maybe a little more.
And I can tell you, by the time I got that half mile, I was about done.
Yeah.
Because that big bag was bouncing up and down on my pack, hitting my back of my legs, I'm sure, my thighs or something.
And then you walked a gravel road that that took you into Camp Green Cove, and then you would walk that gravel road. It seemed like would kind of, once you got near the girls' camp, there were a variety of trails you could take. And
I wouldn't have known any of this.
Well, of course, our destination was a new cabin that had just been built back in, what we call the back 40, which really was an 800-acre piece of ground that was next to another 800 acres that belonged to the owner's brother and his camp, Arrowhead. So seems like both camps, you could share that area. So you had about a 1,600-acre area back there you could go wander around, and there were a maze of both footpaths and Jeep roads.
Boy, yeah, I remember those Jeep roads.
Yeah. And I hadn't really ever been to this cabin. And of course,
I think you told me that. Yeah, I think you said you had, man, but you had an idea where it was, right?
Well, and you had a kid in your cabin.
Yeah.
I sure wouldn't know his name. That kid, he had been there with, the founder of the camp, the guy who was still running it back then, Frank Bell Sr., would take kids on these infamous Jeep rides.
That's right.
All around, and this boy had been on a Jeep ride with Chief to Beech Point, so he knew where it was.
And that was probably in the days before they had seat belts in those Jeeps too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we did. I just remember those were crazy, wild, crazy Jeep rides.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and so
boy thought he knew where it was.
And I'd never been there. And at that point, there was no detailed map either of the back 40. A few years later, one was,
I remember,
a pretty good one was done by a guy named Kelly Crocker.
Oh, yeah.
He spent a whole winter there and walked the back 40. But, on a topo map, we had those topo maps. Well, this area would have covered about maybe 4 square inches at most. So trying to, discern from that where you were.
Right. And of course, this cabin would not have been on the topo map unless someone had been.
No. And
so
we wandered.
We did.
We wandered and would take one trail to another trail.
And this boy kept thinking he knew the way.
Yeah.
And I just followed. I was at the back, so I just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. And the day began to grow shorter and shorter.
It did. And the clouds started to move in.
Right. And then we just decided, I think at dark, well, we'll just camp here. We're okay. I think we had some water, and I don't think we were by any firewood, and in the woods, we were in an open field.
Uh-huh.
But we thought, well, this is okay. We got our sleeping bags. It's a nice night.
And Gary he's in charge of these kids. He's being very optimistic, keeping their morale up, keeping my morale up. Might not, so far, what's wrong? We don't have a cabin, but who cares? We got the wide open spaces.
Yeah. We got our house on our back. So
that's right. Sleep under the stars.
Sleep under the stars. And this is back when, I guess the big old pasture, what's now what we know in Odie's Knob. Anyway, Chief had cows. Remember, he had cows. So.
Oh, yes, I do.
And so you could tell where the cows had been.
Easily.
And
had been in a lot of places too.
And we camped where the cows had been, but we explained to the kids, you just take your poncho, your army poncho, and you lay that down on the ground first. And that way that'll keep you away from getting any of that stuff on your sleeping bag.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like.
As long as you don't roll off the pad or the
Yeah. Well, I don't think we had pads back then.
Yeah, poncho, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. You just had a poncho. Put the poncho down, put your sleeping bag on it. It's just manure. It's okay.
That's right. Natural.
Yeah. It's no big deal.
So all was good.
So I think we we kept them happy with marshmallows and Hershey bars because
always helps.
I don't think
that works for me.
Yeah,
kept me happy,
and that worked pretty well
until
the rain came down,
and it did come down,
and then the kids stood up and grabbed their ponchos,
which were prior to that time on the ground,
covering
the cow surprise.
Yeah, and then to put the poncho on correctly, I've used the analogy, it's like toast, when toast falls butter side down, butter side up or butter side down. I don't know what you would call it, but some of the kids made the mistake of putting the poncho on butter side down, so to speak.
Yes. And so not only are they wet and smelly.
Yeah.
Now they're not as happy as you were 3 hours earlier.
And they're hungry.
Yeah, because that's right. We were feeding them marshmallows and candy bars.
Yeah.
We hadn't had anything other than that to eat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is when you got your first lesson on how to control a potential mutiny.
Yes. It was. They were not happy campers at that point. That's probably where the phrase came from. Not happy camper, happy camper.
And
they invented that phrase.
The camp had a rule: if you went on an overnight, you didn't come back till the next day. So
yeah, I don't remember signing any paper that said that, but you kept explaining that to me.
Yeah,
because I was ready to go back.
Yep.
Had a cabin with a shower in it. But
so I think we, some of it is kind of clouded over.
Well, I
1-year-old memory.
I can remember you, and these were the days prior to LED flashlights that would shine 300 feet and stay bright for 6 months on one AAA battery. These are those D batteries, double D batteries.
Yeah, an anchor.
Yeah, with a glass bulb that could break at any minute. And so whichever kids had them. But you and some kid, I think, you went out trying to see where we were. Maybe that was 4 a.m. in the morning because we weren't sure where we were. And you discovered where we were, and it wasn't far from where we had started.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't at the boys' camp, but we had just made some big circles and
yes, and we found a fence line. I remember that. So then we all got together in single file. I think we had one operating flashlight at this point, and make our way along the fence line, and it takes us downhill. And seems like long about dawn, we realize we're at the girls' camp, Green Cove. We're in their barbecue pit area.
That's right.
At which point we knew where we were.
Right.
And I've left out the chanting that the kids did about "we hate Mark" and "we hate Gary."
I remember that. That went on for hours, it seemed.
Well, it's
that marching, it's marching tune they do in the Army. So these kids were doing that. Mm-hmm.
Waiting for him to turn on us.
That's right. And they were 11 and 12 years old or so.
Yeah.
And they were big enough that they could take us on if they wanted.
Sure.
It's not like they were 4 years old or 6 years old. We could have handled those, 12 of them.
Yeah.
But these were pretty big kids.
Yeah.
So we got back to camp. And everybody
on our way back, yes, I remember it seemed like their recounting of what had happened, but it took on a mythology of its own, where instead of this being just a total disaster, they had been able to withstand whatever nature threw at them. And they were bigger and tougher, and coming out on the other side, they were already turning this into an epic.
They were conquering heroes.
Yes, they were. And by the time I think the second bell for breakfast, I think we made it back, and they were able to go in and eat. And then I don't know what happened after breakfast. I would assume that we all went and passed out in our beds.
Yeah, probably we had to go do an activity though. Maybe they passed out. I wonder if they had their showers before they made it to breakfast or afterwards, because they would smell pretty bad having slept in the cow pies.
Yeah.
But that was a memorable first trip for me.
49 years ago, yes.
Yep. I remember it like it was yesterday. And that's where we cemented our friendship with that trip. And
yes, we did.
I will say that
yeah.
Gary still backpacks, you've heard us say several times a year, and he's never invited me. And that's okay, because if you ever do, I'm not going. But it's not because of that trip. It's because I'm lazy and it's hard work. And but I will say the next summer, I got rid of that canvas $5 backpack, went back to the store, and I bought a $10 nylon one with a waist belt. No padding, no fancy buckle, but I thought I'd come up in the world. I had not come up in the world at all. Must have been my third summer before I ever got around to a decent backpack.
Well, I remember 77, your last summer at camp.
That's right.
You and I took some kids looking for Dismal Falls.
I remember that, yeah.
And we didn't find it.
You know, that runs into the Evelyn Levin.
And we camped. I mean, where we camped is now part of Panther Town, but we, and it was very close to the entrance. There used to be, the Shepherds had Camp Winding Gap.
I remember that camp, yeah.
It was near there. Then the only other, I remember we went looking for Dismal Falls and didn't find it. And then the day we got picked up by Dick Jordan driving the bus, he'd picked up a girls' Tuckasegee trip before he picked us up, and he's the one that gave us the news that Elvis Presley had died.
I remember. Boys, what year? Oh, 77.
That'd be August of 77.
Wow. So I worked at a camp 7 summers. You worked there how many altogether? More than that?
Oh, I think 12, because I skipped a few and then came back and did a couple. My last summer there was 83.
Okay.
69 was first, 83 was last, but there were a few in between I missed. Yeah.
It was a life-changing experience for me that first year. And that's why I did it for 6 more years and still do something outdoorsy every year. Not that necessarily. I don't camp out anymore. I gave up that camping out. That was a good story, Gary. And we're going to do that. We're going to make a recreation.
We're going to Beech Point.
We are.
We should make that maybe our next get together and go mobile.
Yeah. We'll just. I'm going to take a camera, but we'll take a recorder. We can stop and record bits. We're not going to leave the recorder on because it may take us 6 hours to find it again. But you know where it is now, right?
I think we could get there in a pretty short amount of time.
I'd be curious. I have been there. I took my cabin one time, and that would be a whole nother story. That's when everybody came back sick, but that was my fault. My fault being it's been my first year because I should have known better by my second year. I don't know. But anyhow, so Gary, before we leave, you're a gardener. Show us what you have.
Well, I'm not. I am married to a wonderful gardener.
I've seen pictures,
But here, I'm going to hold up. We have an apple tree. We've had it for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. Barbara would, and it's the outfit that before Conserving Carolina in Henderson, Kansas, there was called Eco. And anyway, they sold the Environmental Conservation Club of, anyway, they sold apple trees one year for a fundraiser, and Pristine is, and I thought, it's an ancient heritage tree.
Yeah,
well, I looked it up. I think the Pristine was developed, not that ancient, 1974 up in Purdue. And of course, it's an early apple. So they're coming in now. I mean, I will bet you we've already peeled a good 20 pounds from this one tree.
Wow. And you just had one tree.
Yeah, just this one tree. And it's an every other year tree. So there won't be any apples next year, maybe one or two. So it's every other year.
So,
and ours happens to be, it's an even year. And so boom, 2020. So the next big crop will be 2022.
Does that have to do with the pollination, or does that have to
It
do
has
with?
It has to do with something. Yeah. I mean, it's an every other year.
We should get Dee Dee, because I heard she's got a new job. Now she's
Okay.
working at some nursery, so we may have to get her talk about that. Yeah, one day. So are those tasty eating apples?
They're a really nice balance of about half sweet, half sour.
And is that big as they get, or they get bigger?
Let's see. Hold this up. This is about as big as they get. And one thing I just learned I should do, when they first start to fruit, I should go in and take that clump and get it down to 2. Don't have 4 or 5, because I mean, we ended up we had a bunch that are just a little bit bigger than golf balls. So if I were to do that, then the ones I would get a little bigger.
Well, that sounds.
2
years from now, you can do that.
Yeah, that'll be if I'm still around. If COVID hadn't, who knows? Yeah, I would look forward to 2022.
Yeah,
but yeah, Barbara's made apple sauce and apple butter, and this is going to have fillings for apple pies. And then this morning, I just this one, just had it for breakfast and read about how it's true an apple a day can keep the doctor away.
Well, heard that as
no cholesterol. I forget all the stuff it doesn't have.
No fat, no cholesterol, no salt. No. It's a healthy food.
High in antioxidants and has all these different vitamins. And of course, I like
hungry.
It may, I love that, and it may help prevent Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or dementia.
Well,
so I better have another one.
That's right.
But I have 1 or 2 of these a day. But this tree will be done. You think of fall harvest. This tree will be done. Let's see, it'll be done probably by the 3rd week of July. We'll be done.
When you say being done, you've taken all the apples off that you.
All the apples will be gone. Yeah.
And listeners should know that Hendersonville, where Gary and Barbara live, that is Apple headquarters. They have an Apple festival probably not this year, Labor Day, but
they're trying to figure out how to have it.
Well, they called off the Western State Fair. Yeah. Because they can't figure out any safe way to have it. So I don't know how they're going to have a safe way to have the Apple Festival unless you have all indoor events with people, limited number or something. I have no clue. But that is a big event. Been going on forever. And I think
did look up, apples, boy, they've been around a long time. And of course they came here to North America. They were brought over by the Europeans, but the apple seems to have originated in Asia. And then, it's in the same family with all your little berry tree, and roses. And most of, a lot of the other plants in that family have small fruits. Mm-hmm. And there's been all this theory, large fruit, how trees, the way that, of course, they spread is creatures eat the fruit and move on and spread the seeds. And so, what would have eaten these big things? Well, big creatures. Yeah. So, I don't know, dinosaurs or
mastodons. Mastodons wouldn't have been too many years ago. So,
yeah. And
I thought Johnny Appleseed was spreading those seeds around.
Well, he did here, and I looked him up. He
what was his real name?
Jonathan Chapman.
Okay.
And mainly he spread those Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana. And I think he was also a missionary.
So that was a true story?
Well, he was a real guy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But he did actually go around spreading apple seeds?
Yeah.
It's always a good story.
And it seems like every place where European settlers put down roots, they planted apple trees, but a lot of the ones back then, it wasn't so much, it was cider cider more than, I guess a lot of the apples they had back then weren't that tasty.
Mm-hmm.
And here you go. Here's an interesting, I like Fuji's. Well, Fuji's are originally a cross done by the Japanese of a Red Delicious and a French apple that had been given to Thomas Jefferson that he donated to some farm that they cultivated. So that species and the Red Delicious were crossed by the Japanese to come up with the Fuji. That was 1939.
Wow.
We're saying, like, well, 2 years later, they attacked Pearl Harbor. So
that's right.
Fuji was a nicer move.
Yeah.
But apples, they're just seems like they're in every culture.
And there are a lot of different varieties. Even at the local store, you can get a lot. But probably not. What'd you call that one you have? What's it called?
Pristine.
That's what it was, pristine.
And I think, and if it's it has a name like the something -32. It was the 32nd grafting of. A co-op. Thank you. From off stage.
Okay.
A co-op 32.
Okay.
Developed, I guess, or refined at Purdue University.
Huh.
Mainly, I think, because it's fairly disease resistant. This is would not be a super commercially, I don't think, viable apple. Boy, it touches the ground, it bruises easy. But I mean, if you only got one tree in your yard.
So how does it get pollinated?
The bees, I reckon. I see a lot of.
Well, okay, it makes sense.
And we try and have other things to keep the bees happy and don't do any kind of.
One day you have to hold up some pictures of your garden, because I do see on Facebook Barbara's photos of things from her garden. Beautiful.
She's got a green thumb.
Yeah, well, that's what I don't have. So, and
I don't either.
The Country Life with Columbus Mark will be talking about my green thumb in the next my next video. Yeah. So, well, anyhow, it's been a fun talk, Gary.
Yeah.
Reminiscing about some old times.
Well, and let's make another shot at Beech Point this time.
Let's
need it. Well, I don't know.
Do that.
Maybe we bring our ponchos anyway.
Yep. Well, that's right. But these days, if I'm not backpacking, because you backpack, if I'm hiking, I don't mind a little rain. Cool things. I don't like walking into pouring down rain, but I end up sweating more if I have a jacket on anyhow. So it's better just to get wet as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we thank our sponsors,
Smooth
Outfitters. We haven't been there in months, and who knows when we'll get back, but they're still there.
They're doing well. Yeah.
They're open. Got
Good
that big deck. And we got LJ Myers, professional white dove releases. We've got an app you came up with, Big Wiz
Pocket Buddy.
And finally, we talked about Scott Reed, where we might be able to go and host Scott Reed at, not Mondamon, but where's that place? Resort?
Oh, at Rabbit Island Resort.
Rabbit Island Resort.
Maybe we can get Scott, and he could be our financial consultant.
That's right, because he's actually written books about finances and stuff.
He has.
He plays guitar, so he's going to be up in the area. We need to get him on the show.
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out and do a podcast with him. So maybe
we can get him out of his shell and actually get him to talk.
That's going to be hard.
Yeah.
He'll talk like 1 minute and stop. So yeah, we'll work on that. You got his email. I got his Facebook. We'll get in touch with him. Anyhow, it's been a good show. So I'm Mark.
I'm Gary.
This is the Gary and Mark Show. Check us out at www.garyandmark.com. All those other good places. Like us, share, comment, tell people about us, blah, blah, blah. See you later, Gary.
See you later, Mark.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
See everybody in the next episode.